I don't see the Scottie Barnes thing like some others, and I might be too down on him. But I do think when you're the best guy in the team and the team doesn't win at some point, some of that's got to be on you.
Are you so desperate to fight criminals that you lock yourself in to take them on one at a time?
Actually, there were 7 of them.
I counted 6, Mr. Wayne.
How do you know my name?
The world is too small for someone like Bruce Wayne to disappear, no matter how deep he chooses to sink.
Who are you?
My name is merely Ducard, but I speak for Raz Al Ghul, a man greatly feared by the criminal underworld. A man who can offer you a path.
Makes you think I need a path.
Someone like you is only here by choice. You have been exploring the criminal fraternity, but whatever your original intentions, you have become truly lost.
On what path can Raz Al Ghul offer?
The vigilante is just a man lost in the scramble for his own gratification. He can be destroyed or locked up. But if you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, and if they can't stop you, then you become something else entirely.
Which is?
A legend, Mr. Wayne.
How y'all doing? I have a streaking suspicion this might be the best live I've ever done, and I'm gonna do my best to make sure that it in fact is. So here we are. We're gonna talk about the shadow. We're gonna talk about the unconscious and the conscious split. We're gonna talk about the greatest players of all time and how they all did something very unique psychologically. And once in a while, as I mentioned yesterday, with the finance and Kawhi and everything, a topic comes along that you were born to talk about. And unique in this Raptor space is me. I'm unique. I think I'm unique. I think I have a unique set of life experiences that don't include just basketball, but include psychology, philosophy, finance, and sometimes on the lines of intersection between two disciplines and two thoughts comes golden nuggets of unique information, things that nobody else in the world really is talking about because they didn't think about it, because they can't. And that's where we are right now. We're going to talk about Jungian psychology and Scottie Barnes. Interesting. Shout outs to Russ becoming a new member. We are still on our path to 100 new members, and this is going to be a very organized, detail-oriented, and insightful live, I promise. Let's start with the unconscious conscious split. What is this? You're going to learn a lot about Scottie Barnes. You're going to learn a lot about Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. You're going to learn a lot about a lot of great players, Kawhi Leonard, etc. But you're also probably going to learn a lot about yourself. Some of this might be very uncomfortable for you to learn. Some of this is going to be triggering. So I will issue, because we are in 2025, let me issue a trigger warning. You might find out something about yourself in this live that you don't want to know. There is a part of us that is buried deep down. It is a part of us that was present in childhood, but then became repressed or buried at some point because it was rejected. There is a female side to every man and a masculine side to every female. There is a fearful side of us, a courageous side of us. Children are so fascinating for so many people. They make some of the greatest protagonists in cinema history. Why? Because they are so unapologetically, authentically themselves. But as we grow older, as we go from childhood to adulthood, we are told that certain parts of us are objectionable, too selfish. So you might take a final shot, in a basketball game, and when you're in grade 5, and a teammate was wide open, and your coach may ridicule you and call you selfish and say, we don't like selfish players. And so, seeking the approval of the coach, you may actually misinterpret that information to be, I should always pass. I should never take the final shot. That caused me shame. Children are so dependent on everyone around them to insulate them from the dangers of society that the idea that you would lose that safety for something as easy to hide as your selfishness or your deceit or a liar or whatever trait you want to hide, you just bury it. You bury it. We all have. Every human being who's ever walked this earth has buried some part of themselves. And that part of ourselves becomes hidden to the world. And over some period of time of hiding and hiding and hiding, it actually becomes hidden to ourselves. But it continues to brim under the surface. And that is where the conscious, unconscious thing happens. You don't want to see yourself as what you truly are, but it is actually a paradox, because it is when you become who you truly are that you truly can achieve greatness. If there's a part of you that is deeply buried, that is jealous, you don't want to see yourself as jealous. You certainly don't want to see yourself as jealous, because jealousy was a trait that you expressed as a child that got you scolded. You don't want to see yourself as lazy, so you compensate. And you continue to compensate, but as you compensate, the part that's buried inside of you becomes a shadow. It is a shadow that is always present, brimming underneath the surface, creating friction within your actions. And so when you try to do something, it kind of holds you back, and you don't know why the thing that you want to do isn't as easy as it is for everybody else. It is because it is not actually you that is trying to do what you're trying to do here. And the truth is that that is what becomes the shadow. The shadow is the part of us that we refuse to accept about ourselves. You may have 1,000 connections to the word leader. If you were somebody who was raised to believe that leaders are arrogant, destructive, bad, you have a natural aversion subconsciously to the concept of ever assuming a leadership position. If you view leaders as bad, but deep down, some part of you wants to lead, this becomes a shadow. And I think that this is where we have to talk about Jungian philosophy, because in psychology, because it is present everywhere. And I know that you understand this, but some quick things that we're going to talk about here for the people who didn't study psychology and didn't study philosophy and haven't really dug into Carl Jung. The ego is one's sense of self. The persona is one's social mask. We all wear masks. Whether you think that you are the most authentic person on earth, there are certain cues and certain things that you do, whether it's tidying up your apartment before your girlfriend comes over because you don't want to be seen as a slob that you really are. The truth is, there is a persona that we put to mask the shadow. The self, the organizing principle within the psyche, right? How you construct yourself. The shadow, this own self, this part of us that we don't want to accept about ourselves, but is there. It is a part of us, and it continues to work against us until we let it work for us. The animus, the feminine aspect of a man's psyche, and the masculine element of a female psyche. WYSO saying, bro, that cleaning apartment thing hit too close to home. I feel targeted. Well, I did issue a trigger warning. I apologize. The personal conscious, right? A collection of stored experiences within the individual. We can talk about memory and, how memory manifests itself later. The collective unconscious, a collection of universal images and patterns within the collective psyche, and then the conventional world, the physical world that we all interact in on a conscious level. Now, what you may not realize is that when you reach, it's so interesting how it happens. And until you observe the patterns, you will never realize it. Yesterday, and I've learned a lot about the mask and the psyche and the shadow work, not only through my own life experiences, not only through observing my parents and watching Scottie Barnes and everyone around me, but also really through my girlfriend. And this is so fascinating because she is such a she's such a shadow warrior sometimes. And she has so many things about her that she is not willing to yet accept about herself. And I'll give you an example, like a really quick one. You may have an image of yourself that you deeply hold on to, that you are good at math. A lot of people do, actually, because they view not being good at math from a childhood state as being stupid. They don't want to accept or acknowledge all the things that they've lost, all the things they never learned. They don't really want to accept the gap between themselves and other people who study math. And so they continue to embrace this idea that they are actually good at math until, of course, an opportunity presents itself to test out whether they're good at math, or whether they're good at leadership, or whether they're good at swimming, or whether they're good at tennis, or whether they're good at basketball, or whether they're good at being a professional. And this test will destroy the psychology, the false image that you have of yourself as being good at math. So the minute you go to a math club with people who study math, if in fact you have been holding on to this idea that you are good at math, when in fact you are not good at math, that mask will fall in on itself when you go into this class with people who are great at math. And so you will feel a sense of aversion to this club. But let's say you end up in that club and you find out that you are bad at math. You will go through many psychological loops to prove why the group members hate you, why the curriculum has changed, how they don't teach math how they used to teach it to you, all in order to deflect from the idea that maybe you weren't that good at math at all. It's the same thing with leadership. You view yourself as a good leader. You have no evidence for the fact that you're a good leader. You really don't know that you're a good leader, but it seems nice to think that you could lead. And so sometimes you may even disparage other leaders. You might look at someone who's a coach and say, "Oh, I could do that." You might look at someone who's leading your team and say, "Well, if I was in a leadership position, we would be a winning team." Until, of course, you are thrust into the position of actually leading yourself, at which point you will find out who you truly are, which is scary when you don't know who you truly are. You see the point? Okay. I promise you understand this. I promise you understand this. This is all a cinema, storytelling. This is all over the place. The Batman, this entire thing was embracing the shadow. The scared child whose parents are shot in front of him. The origin story of Batman is a great way to understand this entire topic. I promise, if you are 12 minutes into this live and you believe for whatever reason that this is not going to land, I promise you it will land, and it will land so well. You will be happy that you engaged with this, because you're going to learn some very good stuff. But consider the Batman story, right? What is the big thing that Nolan was working towards with his version of the Batman? He really wanted to hammer home this Jungian archetype psychology part in terms of understanding the entire origin story of Batman. This fearful child who is so fearful of the bats that it creates the fear of him asking his parents to leave the opera, which then of course ends up resulting in his parents. So there's fear and there's guilt. There's the buried guilt that I caused my parents suffering and demise. And then there's the fear of the bats. And so what is it that creates the Batman? Embracing his fear, embracing the part of himself, the guilt and the fear that he didn't want to see himself as, right? The violence. Now, again, it's everywhere. Tyler Durden in Fight Club, that entire split psyche of the part of yourself you don't want to see. Darth Vader, Luke, there's Gollum and Frodo. It's everywhere. Let's talk about basketball. Let's talk about Scottie and Scott. Let's talk about these two individuals. I've been watching Scottie Barnes for a really long time. I promise you, I think I know more about Scottie Barnes than any person covering the Toronto Raptors, because I have dug very deeply into him. And through everything you see in Scottie Barnes, I want you to go back and look at Scottie Barnes at 15, 16 years old. And you can see that there is a split, right? There's a split. And you see it in such subtle ways. It's so funny. He's like a day-to-day split between two identities. There is this complete killer, right? There's this killer in him. It's destructive. It's rude. People used to be like, why is he always flexing? Why is he so nasty to his opponents on the court? He has a real dog in him. It expresses itself not quietly. It's very loud and it's very obnoxious. He's a very obnoxious basketball player. And then there is this very shy Scottie, right? That you see in certain interviews where he mumbles through his words and he's looking down and he's shy. He's shy. He's uncomfortable in some of those situations when after a good game, he'll always deflect, oh, well, just shout out to my teammates and whatever, never really taking the credit. But there is this animal inside this man that is trying to come out, this lion, this fierce competitor, this killer, this leader that is trying to come out at all times. And you see it in the heat of battle when he gets into a game and he forgets, like so many people have talked about why Scottie Barnes doesn't do well in first quarter, second quarters, whatever, and why then suddenly he can score 17 or 18 points in the fourth quarter. And I'll tell you what it really is. Because in the beginning, he is really leaning into the mask, right, of the good teammate, the selfless guy and whatever. But when you get into the heat of battle, into a deep playoff run, or, into the weeds of the fourth quarter and your team is down 6 or 7, the mask kind of falls away and you just start going on instinct. There's several times where he's been hit, like really hard. And you can see him get really mad with the referee. And then you'll see him score like 6, 7, 8 points in succession. And it's just insane what you see from this guy. And this is the split between Scottie and Scott Wayne, this killer, this totally, this is a guy, it's so funny to me, the conundrum of Scottie Barnes, right? On the one hand, you have this selfless teammate who can never, ever heap enough praise on everybody else, always sharing the glory, always team first, always pass first. And then also you have Scott, right? This completely different guy who says he wants to be the greatest player in the world, who writes down goals like, I want to kill everyone in practice, who, says Kobe Bryant is his favorite player, who comes out and says, no, I want everything. I want MVP. I want DPOY. I want it all. I want a max contract. I want to be the man. Scott and Scottie are the same person. They're an unintegrated self through whatever reason. I don't know whether it was watching, Magic Johnson highlights with his dad, whether it was bad guidance from some influence in his childhood, whether it was some sort of childhood trauma. Something in this young man told him to not stand out. And yet something inside of him said, I was born to stand out. I was born to be great. I was born to be a leader. I was born to, be the man. And then there's this other part that's like, no, pass so that nobody will look at you. Nobody will focus on you. And it is the emergence of Scott in these beautiful little moments that gives you hope for a 25, 27 point per game scorer, the best player in the league, this type of MVP hype, the Darko Rajakovic, like Scottie Barnes is an all-star. Scottie Barnes is going to be the face of the league. How do you go from that to guy just scored 8 points per game? I think that is the confusion with Scottie, right? There's a lot of people who feel like I'm gassing it. But the truth is I'm looking at a very different person and I'm looking at it from a very different perspective. And that's really where the confusion comes in. And so I bring you to the confusion, the point of infliction. And, like it's funny, whether you're talking about, like Kobe Bryant or all these guys, and we'll talk about the evolution of the asshole very momentarily, but, there was this little confusion, right? Because you didn't get who you asked for. Let's just be honest. You drafted a 0-level scorer who was the ultimate team guy, and Fred and Pascal probably didn't watch a lot of Scottie Barnes in high school. They probably didn't understand the type of asshole that they just drafted, the type of difficult personality that they just drafted, the guy that the media would be saying had work ethic issues and personality issues and attitude issues. They probably thought they got like Patrick Williams, a guy who's just willing to fade into the background, play ball, let everybody else eat, let everybody else get the max contract. They thought they got Herb Jones. They thought they got rookie Kawhi Leonard. The guy who's not going to make too much noise if you don't pass him the ball. But that's not who they got. That's the confusion. They got a star who didn't know he was a star, but deeply suspected that he was a star. He wrote down he wanted to be Rookie of the Year. You don't do that. You really don't do that. You don't become Rookie of the Year unless you think you deserve Rookie of the Year. And you really don't think you deserve Rookie of the Year if you're not going to be a star in a draft as loaded as 2021. I mean, to write down that you're going to be Rookie of the Year when your teammate, Cade Cunningham, who you watched every day in practice for an entire year, is as good as he is. Evan Mobley, who you've seen with Team USA, is as good as he is. Jalen Suggs, Jalen Green, all these guys, to think that you, fifth option Scottie Barnes, is going to win Rookie of the Year against these guys, you must have an irrational amount of confidence, right? You must really think you're the man. In his rookie season, he went against LeBron. He went against KD. These are measuring sticks. These are confirmation tests that sometimes people, who have a little bit of bravery will do once in a while to test themselves. Because you have to understand, there's a part of him that really does believe he's like this ultimate role player, Draymond Green, right? There's a part of him that understands that this is the heap of praise that everyone is going to put on him. The self-looking glass is very strong with Scottie Barnes, right? There's a bunch of people saying 0 level score, and there's probably a part of him that's just like seduced into maybe I am. But then once in a while, he'll put up like 34 points, 32 points against LeBron, or shut down Steph Curry, or Giannis, and you hear Magic Johnson comparing himself to him, and he'll be like, maybe I'm not that guy. Maybe I'm this other guy. Maybe I am a superstar and everyone's just failed to see it. Maybe I am the next Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Maybe I'm that type of guy as opposed to this other guy. And I think that has been the confusion. And it's interesting because what I mentioned earlier, you don't go to the math club if you're afraid to find out that you're not good at math. You don't push Fred VanVleet out the door if you're afraid to lead. You don't create a situation where the team is willing to put the ball in your hands and say you're the leader unless you're willing to find out, right? And again, I'm not saying Scottie is going to be the best player in the league. I'm certainly not. I'm saying he's trying to find out if he can be, and that's the interesting part of this. Leaders, most people don't want to be leaders, man. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. There are very few people who are born to lead, willing to lead in our society, because leadership comes with great praise when things go right and great criticism when things go wrong. Right now, Scottie Barnes is the whipping boy of the entire NBA right now. The best player on a 30-win team. How good is he really? Well, you really wouldn't have to find that out if Fred and Pascal had stayed around, right? You wouldn't have had to find that out if you never really shone out and tried to become an all-star. You really don't find these things out. It's the same thing with Kobe Bryant, right? And this kind of comes back to you asked for it. You asked for it, right? Now you're here. You asked for this. You shone bright. You gave every indication that you were the man and willing to be the man. So now be the man. Let's talk about the evolution of the asshole. There's so many patterns and examples of this exact thing happening in NBA history. It's almost ridiculous that we don't talk about it more. I want you to think about rookie Kawhi Leonard. Like really, really think about that shy, mumbling, guy. That guy wasn't demanding super maxes. That guy wasn't demanding yachts and boats. That guy was just happy to be in the NBA. He didn't really know who he could be yet. And then he went up against LeBron James in the 2014 finals and really did a great job, won finals MVP, and something changed in Kawhi in 2014. He became a lot more ruthless. He wasn't as shy anymore. Yeah, he was still kind of reserved to himself, but there was a quiet confidence that you can't stop me. I now know how good I am. I went up against the best player in the world, and I won finals MVP. My team won a championship. I'm a finals MVP. I got Bill Russell giving me finals MVP. I might be really, really good. And I think that that's sort of an evolution that Scottie's on. Giannis was on. Joel Embiid was on. Shaquille O'Neal was on. Kobe Bryant was on. All these guys. Michael Jordan. Go watch Michael Jordan at North Carolina. He walked onto North Carolina as a freshman knowing that he wouldn't be the best player, right? That was James Worthy. And within a few weeks, he started to push and push and push and push, and then he was the best player. But he continued to be a second option or third option or fourth option. People were really surprised when he took that shot as a freshman because nobody expected him to take it. But the minute he hit that shot, he knew what he deeply suspected was true, that he was actually destined to be great. Not a role player, not a complimentary player, not a second fiddle to anybody, but actually one of the greatest players of all time. And that shot cemented it for him. The number of clutch moments that Scottie Barnes has had against the Giannis's and the Kevin Durant's of the world should tell you that this is a man who is trying to test the hypothesis of how good can I really be? Am I really one of these ones? And I don't know if I'm one of these ones. I deeply don't know, because everyone in my life is telling me I'm not, except for Brian and my parents and my friends. They're telling me I am. But the league is telling me I'm not. They're telling me I'm not. They're telling me I'm a role player. They're telling me I'm the next Draymond Green. So let's test it out. Let's see if I really am this good. And that's why you see him dial up against the Lukas and the Jokic's of the world, because these are the best. Am I one of these guys? Let's see. You see a completely different energy. I don't care if you're the biggest Scottie lover, Scottie hater. You know, if Jokic is the next man up, if Embiid is the next man up, this dude is going to play, and he is going to play crazy hard. and he's testing himself. This is just a hypothesis. The first 4 or 5 years, just floating your feet in the league. That's why most careers don't last past 4.5 years, because most people float their feet in the league and realize, this ain't for me. I made my money. I'm out. I'll go play in Europe where there's a lot less pressure, where I can be the man and I can dominate weaker competition. This ain't for me. This ain't for everybody though. And so you really do have to think about all these players from the Michael Jordans. Think about Kobe and Shaq. Kobe and Shaq is a great one. Shaq was a player who was raised with a military background, very soft spoken. You would not believe it from watching Shaq later. Kobe, tell me how my ass tastes. Remember that? That was not the Shaquille O'Neal we met in 1993, my friend. No. The Shaquille O'Neal we met in 1993 mumbled into a microphone and was quiet, polite, and soft. People called him soft. People said, oh my God, he's so big. Why is he so soft? Yeah, he was breaking backboards occasionally, but in the media, the Orlando Magic media, go back. I'm old enough to remember this vaguely, but there was talks about like Shaquille O'Neal doesn't really have the killer instinct to take over games. He got murked by Hakeem Olajuwon in the finals in 1995. And so it's like the legend kind of grew, but then he gets to LA. And a completely different Shaquille O'Neal emerges. And it's partly because he has this friction with this young teammate on his team, pushing him forward, calling him lazy, calling him out of shape, calling him overrated, calling him soft. And it's this young teammate named Kobe Bryant. And it's interesting because Kobe himself, if you watch Kobe at Lower Merion, you watch Kobe as a youngster, he's actually not loud. He's not a trash talker. He's actually quite soft-spoken. He's kind of nice. Kobe's nice. Kobe went to the prom with Brandy. He was nice. He was a killer, but he was nice. Like, he was nice. This crazy Mamba mentality shit didn't come out till much later. Don't get it twisted. Kobe was a nice guy. He was a competitor. He was hardworking, but he was nice. He was a nice guy. And then suddenly something happened with Kobe, and I don't know exactly how it happened, when it happened, but something clicked in this guy. And I wonder if it was all those air balls. He had this really, really bad showing in the playoffs where he just took all these air balls and everybody started maligning him as selfish and all this stuff. And it was something about that really broke, right? Like in him, I think it broke. And yeah, like I think this. Give me a second to organize my little slides here, because StreamYard is structured in such a way. I'm only able to add 10 slides, so now I have to add the remaining slides. Big shout out to Kihan Baria. I hope I'm saying these names correctly because y'all are members, and I do want to get your names right. So overall, I think that it's really important to realize that these players became something through friction, through hardship, and they discovered a part of themselves that they needed to lean into. Maybe Kobe just wanted to be initially. Maybe Kobe was in awe of Shaq. I mean, you can tell from the interviews that he's delivered that he actually has like a great deal of respect for Shaq and awe for Shaq. But then he saw Shaq. He was Shaq's teammate, and then he realized, I actually don't really respect this guy's work ethic. I can be better than this guy. And being better than Shaq is like, it's weird, man. Like you really have to think about this. Being better than Shaquille O'Neal is next level. Like if you can be better than this guy, you can be better than anybody, because when best player in the world is on your team, it's kind of like Scottie Barnes outplaying Pascal Siakam. Now, I'm not saying Pascal is Shaq, but Pascal is a 2-time All-NBA guy. So when you can beat him out, there's a friction that creates the fire, right? And I think that that's really important to realize. And this entire like Mamba mentality thing with Kobe Bryant, like this Mamba guy that we saw, this dude, this is not the dude that we met early, And it's interesting. Oh, there we go. Kayhan Baria. Okay. Kayhan Baria. I gotta like write this down somewhere because I have a feeling I'm gonna forget. But okay, we will do our best. So again, this Kobe that we met later, he was different. And it's interesting because, like the initial one, was maybe hurt. Like there's a lot of hurt that happened in Kobe's life. You realize in 2001 that, that the shit that happened with his parents, him being hurt by the fact that the Philly fans were booing him, even though he's from Philadelphia and he was a hometown kid, and he's watching Allen Iverson in the finals, beats him, goes and wins his second championship, and his dad is not there because there's this thing happening. All this pain, the Colorado situation, the allegations, this morphed this man into an absolute killer. And it was actually through embracing that nasty side of himself instead of holding it back and just letting it come up once in a while that he actually became a very full person. He realized, and the word is individuation, he became himself. And what was interesting was by embracing the darkness, he became a better teammate. He was no longer the cagey, arrogant asshole necessarily. He actually became generous. He became a better teammate. Pau Gasol had a very different Kobe Bryant than Shaquille O'Neal. A lot of people chalk this up to a simple evolution of him being older, but that's not true, because you'll meet many, many people who are quite confused about who they are in their 20s, and the same people who are very, very confused about who they are in their 60s. You don't get to tell me that this shift is automatic. It's not automatic. Many people will go their whole lives without ever doing the work and going through the journey. And the truth is, it's not like Kobe. I'm sure, I don't know Kobe Bryant, but I'm not sure Kobe Bryant read a self-help book, or Kobe Bryant went to a psychologist and said, "Hey, I've got some issues with my teammates. Can you help me?" No, I don't think that's what happens. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes you get held up at gunpoint. Sometimes you lose a loved one. Sometimes you get cheated on, and you find out something about yourself that you didn't want to find out. Something ugly, something disgusting inside of you. And my suggestion to you, and this is a very dangerous thing that I'm going to say, but because I'm not necessarily saying like go and give into your basest appetites, because that's dangerous information. And the reason that this isn't more popular is precisely because we don't want a society where people give in to their darkest desires, or their worst side. We don't want people to go out and experiment with the worst thing that they think that something buried inside of them. We want people to walk around like drones. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I'm saying in my own journey here, let me take a brief second to just talk about my own path with this before I get into the depths of everything else that we're talking about here. Like, hold on, let me just load up the slides here. I will talk about myself briefly here. Hold on, now this I got to remove. So for me, this entire process, and to those of you who've been with us since the very beginning, you know that this has been a work in progress for me, right? Like, I've been an asshole at times, in these chats. I've gone after people and realized later that I was wrong for doing it. I've certainly veered quite toxic in certain areas. You may know this if you follow this channel for a while and you watch all our lives, that putting myself on camera was one of the most scary things for me. Why? Why was it so scary? Partially, it was scary because I actually grew up really. I grew up in a world where standing out was seen as selfish. I grew up in a world where drawing light to yourself, at least from my parents' perspective, was considered a selfish trait, not a good trait. Anytime you praise yourself, anytime you presented yourself as an expert or something like that, is like, it's a bad thing, right? Like, we don't like those types of people. And when you receive that sort of feedback of like, oh, you stood out too much here, why do you feel like you deserve to do this or whatever, like when you receive that type of feedback, you start to suppress a part of yourself that naturally wants to shine, that wants to be out there, that wants to put your face out there. Maybe there is a part of me that wanted to put my face out there for 20 years, but there was another part of me that was holding me back, saying, no, you're not good enough to do that, and if you do that, you'll be selfish and people will hate you. You know what I mean? So this journey is interesting, and I've always embraced this journey as a bumpy road, and I know it will be a bumpy road, because the process of individuation, and let me define individuation in terms of what is individuation, the process where the individual self develops out of an undifferentiated unconscious self, right? Again, there's no escaping this. You either do it or you die first. That's it. There's no way away from this process. There's no path forward that involves you burying some part of yourself, nasty, arrogant, whatever, right? Maybe some part of me is arrogant deep down. Embracing that makes it okay. You understand what I'm saying? By being arrogant, by being condescending, by doing all these things that people will naturally penalize you for, they'll fire you for it. If you're arrogant enough towards your boss and you push enough lines, you will be fired. Now, you can either do one of two things here. You can either embrace the arrogance, which will actually make it a lot less potent and a lot less destructive in your life. I guess the way I'm trying to describe this is whatever your shadow is things you deem to be destructive. And by not embracing or going through the process of individuation, those things manifest themselves in outbursts that are deeply destructive, right? So if your shadow is violent, right? Violent. You don't want to find out something about yourself. Maybe you're a little bit violent. Maybe you hit a kid in the playground and your parents grounded you for 2 weeks and told you were a really bad human being. And so what you did was you promised yourself that you would never, ever, ever be angry again. And so that anger and violence sits dormant in you. It's why you're out there smoking or drinking, because you're trying to bury it. You're trying to hold it down. You have to embrace it. I'm not saying go out and punch everyone in the face. I'm saying embrace it. This is a part of you. You can't reject it, because when you reject it, it manifests in outbursts. Outbursts that can be quite dangerous. So the concept here is to integrate the shadow into the self. And that is really what the alter ego element is. The alter ego is a facade. There's no alter ego, in my opinion. It's not an alter ego. Beyonce's alter ego is Sasha Fierce. What is Sasha Fierce? It is the embracing of the fact that I am a solo act. Destiny's Child was hiding. I'm one of 4. Now I'm one of 3. Now I'm one of 1. Because maybe there's some part of Beyonce that didn't know if she was good enough to make it on her own. Now she knows she's good enough to make it on her own. And maybe there was some part of Beyonce. I mean, you watch early Beyonce, you will see a very mild-mannered, timid type of girl. You see current Beyonce, holy shit. It's the same thing with Serena Williams, the same thing with Pete Sampras. You can go down the list of every person who's ever become great. Leonardo DiCaprio, go watch early Leo, go watch current Leo, go watch early Brad Pitt, go watch current Brad Pitt, go watch early Al Pacino, go watch current Al Pacino, go watch early Spielberg, go watch current Spielberg. There is a concept in the self where, there's a part of me that's just buried. There's a part of me that's buried because it was rejected, and it's there. It's just brimming under the surface, and it holds you back. It holds you back considerably. Maybe Scottie is more selfish than he wants to admit. Maybe Scottie is more arrogant, more angry, more destructive than he wants to admit. Maybe Scottie wants to score 30 points per game, but he's been taught that scoring 30 points per game makes you a bad teammate. The good thing is Darko's here. Brian's there. And he's got these very powerful, respected sources in his life, and plenty of information, by the way, at this point, to tell him that actually you being unselfish is the selfish thing. That's the lesson that Tyrese Halliburton learned from his trainer, because his trainer said, you refusing to take this jump shot is hurting your teammates. And Halliburton said, can you show me proof that me taking more shots helps my team? And so his trainer drew a chart for him, one of the best trainers in the world, drew a chart and showed that the more he scored, the better his team was. You want to think of basketball in a very simple way, which is, can the guy dribble? Can the guy score? Can the guy defend? Can the guy move? Can he jump? This is the most base level to think about basketball. The truth is, basketball is so much more than that. So much more than that. You see it in the clutch. You see it in the clutch. You saw it with Chris Webber, his whole damn life. That timeout that he didn't have, that he called, became a crutch for him, because for the rest of his life, he was defined by that moment. To this day, he is a multi-time All-Star, All-NBA, one of the greatest power forwards in NBA history. And yet, go back to ask people who watched Chris Webber in the 1990s and the early 2000s, what is the thing about Chris Webber that you remember the most? He didn't win a championship, and he called a timeout when he didn't have it. It is the defining moment in a man's career sometimes that can create, hangups and psychological traps for a person. Kobe Bryant was taking airball after airball as the entire LA media ripped him to shreds, saying he was an arrogant asshole. It's interesting. Scottie Barnes' coverage the last 3-4 years has been similar. He's arrogant. He's difficult. He's got an attitude. He's got an entitlement to him. Oh, listen to Doug Smith talk about him. Oh my God. Oh, this guy thinks he's entitled to this and entitled to that. There's another side to entitlement, There is another side. Because if you had met early Steve Jobs working out of his basement, you probably would have thought he was entitled. If you met early Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, you'd probably think they were all a little bit entitled because they were dreaming bigger than they had a right to dream. They thought they deserved things that they otherwise didn't get. One of the most arrogant people that I've ever met in my life. I won't give you his name, but he went to my fraternity, and he and I butt heads constantly, partially because we were actually quite similar, but we were also different. And in the ways that we were different, we butt heads. And in the ways we were similar, we triggered each other because obviously when you meet somebody who is your shadow, that is the person you hate the most. I promise you. There is a person out there who deep down inside is selfish. They're selfish and they are self-centered, and they were told at a young age, don't be that or everyone will hate you and we will not like you as much. And so this helpless child who at 5 years old was selfish because they took too much candy from their siblings buries this part of themselves that's selfish. And what do? They define themselves as unselfish. So the selfish part becomes buried. And then they continue to go through life defining themselves as unselfish and burying the part of themselves that's selfish. And they beat themselves up all the time. And when they meet somebody who is very selfish, careless in their selfishness, open with their selfishness, like, yeah, I want it all. I want the world. I want all the money. I want all the candy. I want everything. They hate that person more than anybody else. They can't stop thinking about that person because how dare they live the life that I wish I had the courage to live? How dare they? See what I mean? Scottie Barnes hates selfish basketball. He hates, bad shots. He hates all that stuff. He seems to be very frustrated when people do it. Why? Because deep down, he's a Kobe fan. And deep down, he probably thinks, how dare they? How dare they take the shots that I am too afraid to take, but can take and will take. And it's interesting that now you have Darko and you have Brian, and they're constantly feeding him this feedback loop of, no, you are a superstar. No, you can be the face of the league. You can average 30 points per game. And so you are slowly chipping away at this powerful thing that makes Scottie want to be just another guy. And you keep reminding him, no, you're not just another guy. You're this guy. You're superstar. You're shuts down Giannis Antetokounmpo and Steph Curry in the same season. You are rips LeBron James and stares him down. You are the guy who busts his ankle, is in a walking boot, and is dunking the next day in the playoffs. Like, you're that dude. You're that dude. You're rookie of the year, all-star 22. You're that guy. You are the face of the franchise. You are going to win basketball games. You win a lot of basketball games. You will be an NBA champion at some point, I believe. You are that guy. Now, walk with it. Embrace it. It's a process. Persona, ego, self, shadow, anima, animus. This entire process of breaking this barrier that keeps the selves apart, because you don't want to know the shadow. You don't want to embrace that you have a violent side. You don't want to embrace that you might lie. You don't know these things about yourself, and you desperately want to avoid situations where you might find out something about yourself that you don't want to know. Again, the basketball player who failed at basketball hates the modern NBA. Hates it with a passion. How dare they get all this money? I could have been that good, but you weren't. You weren't. You never embraced it. You never worked hard enough. You don't want to find out why you weren't good enough. No, you say you weren't good enough because you weren't scouted, because you didn't see the right people, you didn't have the right opportunity, your coach hated you, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you weren't that good because you just weren't that good. Embrace it. No, instead, we spend an entire lifetime hating on the modern generation, swearing that if only, if only, if only. It's interesting. The era taxing thing is hilarious to me. A lot of people say that Magic Johnson wouldn't be good in today's NBA. I say that's bullshit. shit. Absolutely a lie. Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, these are different beasts. These are different types of beasts, man. Like, this is a different mentality. Steph Curry succeeds in every era. Shaquille O'Neal succeeds in every era. Kobe, Michael, these greats succeed in any era. And if you want to know, like, could Bill Russell play today? Yes, he could. Because Bill Russell was wired differently. There's something about his brain that is aligned with this part. Bill Russell was a very nice guy, that big chuckle. Like, he is the nicest person ever. Beast on the basketball court. Nasty, disgusting competitor on the basketball court. That competitive streak is like, it's a matter of simply this. If you were born to fill the room, it doesn't matter what room you're in. If you were born to fill the room, I put you in a closet, you fill the closet. I put you in a ballroom, you fill the ballroom. If I put you in a great hall, you fill the great hall. If I put you in church, you fill the church. If you're born to fill the room, you fill the room. And you will do whatever it takes to fill the room, because that's your identity. That's who you are. That's greatness, right? So again, context of greatness. Sometimes people who are afraid to find out they're not actually an authority on a subject will suppress themselves to avoid conversations, avoid rooms in which they may find out they're not that great. And it's the same thing with Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was a psycho competitor. Magic Johnson was a champion. This is how he defined himself. He was that guy. So if you tell Magic Johnson you got to take threes to win championships, he'll do it. He'll work harder. He'll do it. And some people always rebuke this. They always say, oh, Rob, you're just gassing it. No, I'm not gassing it. I watched Magic Johnson do whatever was necessary to win. And it's the same thing with Scottie. If you tell Scottie, if he truly integrates the idea that he's got to become a 25-point per game scorer for his team to win championships, I guarantee you he will do it. It doesn't matter how clunky the handle is, the jump shot is, he will find a way. Winners find a way. There's not one scout, one person on earth that could have seen this shit coming from Giannis, Kawhi, or frankly, a lot of these guys. People pretend later that it was so obvious all along. Oh, yeah, everyone should have seen Giannis. Oh, they just underscouted him. This is the problem with scouts. They don't want to admit that they were wrong, so they say, we didn't see him. You didn't see him. You didn't want to see him. You couldn't have seen him because he didn't even see himself. You're not a fortune teller. You're a scout. You got to admit sometimes. You can reverse engineer the narrative to say we missed all these signs, but the truth is everyone missed them for a reason. They weren't obvious. Nobody wants to do this. You probably won't want to do this yourself. It's hard. It's hard to accept that you're not a good friend. It's hard to accept that you actually aren't that peaceful. It's hard to accept that, all the time that you've been hating on leaders isn't actually because you're secretly a great leader, but because you're afraid of leadership. That's why you hate it. You hate leaders because you're afraid of leaders. There's so many things you can find out about yourself that you may not want to know. And the truth is, our brains are not designed to help us be better people. They're not designed to help us make the most money we can. They're not designed to put us in the perfect situation. No, what they're designed to do is to keep us safe. When you're 5 years old, safety is winning the approval of your caregiver. It's that simple, actually. When you become 10 years old, it is winning the approval of your classmates and your teachers. This is what keeps you safe. Nobody wants to be the stinky kid at school that everybody hates. So you blend in. You do everything possible. You demand the shoes that everyone's wearing because you don't want to stand out with the kid with the stupid shoes and doesn't have the Jordans. You wear clothes. You start talking like the people around you because why? You don't want to stand out because you don't want to lose the approval of your peers. You don't want to. You get good grades because you don't want to lose the approval of your teachers and your parents. You actually never really stop to even think to yourself, did I want to get good grades? Am I even interested in history? Maybe I'm not bad at history because I hate history or because I'm stupid, maybe I'm not bad at history because I'm stupid and I can't remember things. Maybe I'm bad at history because I hate history. You don't want to admit that. You don't even ask that. Nobody asks you. Nobody asks you when you're young. People say, do you like math? Do you like finance? Do you like science? Is this what you're interested in? Nobody cares. Nobody asks you. And the truth is that the more you don't get asked the right questions, you also don't really have the wisdom to ask yourself the right questions. And so you end up falling into a trap. And the trap is that you walk through life as somebody that you are objectively not. And that becomes safe because it's kept you safe. Being not violent has kept you safe. Not embracing leadership has kept you safe. Not trying too much and falling on your face. You know, you have all these insidious forces in your life too that are kind of keeping you down as well. Jung talked about these people as well, you know, these sort of like silent killers, people who just be like, you know, you're probably going to fail at that, right? Man, I tell you, when I tried to become a filmmaker in 2014 and I wanted to become a scriptwriter, there were so many people in my life telling me I couldn't do it. How dare I? I didn't go to film school. I'm a finance guy. I have a really good job. How dare I? This idea of even moving from hedge funds to film is so bizarre and so stupid and so crazy and so dangerous. Why would any person in their mid 20s even attempt to do this? And the truth is, I needed to find out if I could do it. I needed to find out if this part of me that was buried deep inside. Truth be told, I grew up in an environment where I was told that artists die broke. I was told that you don't want to be an artist because you'll be broke. You don't want to be an artist. No one will marry you. If you're broke, no one will marry you. You don't want to be broke. And of course, me growing up in government housing, you know, surrounded by people with welfare, surrounded by people who couldn't buy basic necessities. The last thing in the world I ever wanted to be was broke. It's scary to be broke. You end up in government housing when you're broke. Your children, you know, a defining moment for me, which has propelled me my entire life, was when I was in grade 6. I desperately wanted to take piano lessons. And I loved the piano, loved it. I'm seduced by the sound of piano. Every pianist is like my favorite artist. And so when I listen to piano, I like my heart just feels good. Like when I'm listening to Philip Glass, like everything is right in my life. Like even contemporary pianists like Ludovico, like this is my jam. This is what I love. And so I wanted to take piano lessons because I wanted to learn how to play the piano. And so I went to my mother and I said, I want to take piano lessons. And she said, how much does it cost? And I said, $30 an hour. She says, an hour? She thought a week. No, an hour. And she herself, my mother at the time, was making $10 an hour. And she was a single mother at the time. And so the idea of paying someone else $30 an hour to teach her son, and she said, that's not going to happen. We're not rich enough to do that. And so a lot of that was traumatic for me in that moment because I thought that she would say yes to something like this, right? And I never really looked into it more. I never asked her again because I felt guilty for asking someone who was barely making ends meet to fulfill my, you know, totally superfluous, totally unnecessary need to learn how to play piano. And so what I would do is I would go with my friend who was taking piano lessons and I would sit outside the door and I would listen to the piano. I would listen to this door and this door became like a fucking, it was just wood. It was 2 inches deep and yet it felt like a brick wall that I would never be able to break through. And in that moment, I gave up on myself. You know, I went across the street and I got a job working $5 an hour with the intention that I would pay for my own piano lessons. And by the time I was done at the end of the week, I had worked 16 hours and got a paycheck of $80 in cash. And I remember thinking in that moment, with how hard I had worked for that $80, I myself no longer believed that I deserved to, that I could possibly spend that money on piano lessons. I had to work so hard. I'd have to work 6 hours in, you know, packing groceries and, you know, sitting in a freezer, stocking up milk and ice cream and selling cigarettes and stocking magazines and cleaning, mopping the floor. I had to do this for 6 hours to afford 1 hour of piano lessons. And it was in that moment that I learned that maybe I don't care about piano lessons as much as I thought I did because now I have to work for it. And it was in that moment that I made a covenant with myself that I've kept to this very day, which I said, if I have a child, when I have a child, I said, you know, because I thought I'd have a kid by my early 20s, I said that kid will be able to get piano lessons. I defined my whole life by this moment, this painful moment of sitting outside that piano door, listening to my friend play the piano, stop playing, get corrected. I could barely hear it through the door, and that became everything for me. And so I defined myself as someone who wasn't good enough for piano lessons, but I refused. You know, I said, like, I'm going to be someone who's going to be, you know, financially secure enough that if my kid wants to take piano lessons, karate lessons, taekwondo lessons, tennis lessons, they're going to get whatever they want. And it's so interesting. This sort of self-sacrifice became my whole fucking life. This self-sacrifice became my whole fucking life. Anytime somebody needed anything from me, I was there. But anytime I needed something, I refused to ask. People often ask me, why do you always look for people to save? Why do you always want to save everybody? Why do you want to help people? Why do you want to, help everybody. Who helps you? Why don't you ask for help? I would be part of a team and I would do everything myself. But then when we get on stage, I would feel so much pride saying we all did this and I barely did anything. Why was I so afraid to hide my own contributions to a group project? I would do films where I did 90% of the work. And yet when it came down to it, I acted like I did nothing. Why? What is it, man? What the fuck was it? And I was thinking so much about why am I so afraid? Why am I so afraid to say, no, I am good, man. I'm good enough. I'm good enough to deserve this. I'm good enough to want this. And the truth is because there's a shadow. There was a shadow in me that did want to stand out, that did want to be great, that did want to proudly pound my chest and say, no, I'm great, man. I'm smart. I'm good enough. More than good enough. I'm great at what I do. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I wanted to say all those things, but instead I chalked it up to teamwork because I thought that was the right thing to do. But it is actually through the panel and through Pensari basketball that I really found like a different side of myself, a side of myself that will fight for myself, a side of myself that demands, not quietly opines for, not gets frustrated, no, demands self-respect. Many times on the panel, I will be cut off or someone will talk down to me and you will see an immediate turn in me when I will say, you will not talk to me that way. Same guy in grade 4, you could talk to me anyway. You could talk to me anywhere in grade 4. You could, there's nothing you could say to me when I was in grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, whatever, that was worse than what I was already saying to myself. This idea of demanding respect comes with the integration of the shadow. There is a part of me that is selfish. Oh, those words feel hard coming out of my mouth, but there is a part of me that demands greatness. There is a part of me that believes that I am better than you or somebody else. There is a part of me that's okay with that. And again, when you're in grade 5 or grade 6 and you try to express this part of you that's like, I'm going to be better than you, people call you arrogant or dumb or brat or just a bad person. And nobody wants that. And then people don't want to be your friends because you're the arrogant guy who thinks he's smarter than other people. But what if you actually are smarter than other people? Is it okay for Einstein to say he was smarter than his peers? Yeah, he was. He embraced himself. You know what I mean? So that's my point here. Whatever the ugliness is, it's really only ugly so long as you're failing. The minute you become successful, people build statues around it. Kobe Bryant was a fucking asshole. He's the asshole who wanted to take shots away from Shaquille O'Neal. He's the asshole who drove Shaq out of town. What is he most remembered for today? Mamba mentality, which is what? Being an asshole. That's really what it is. Mamba mentality is the killer mentality that turns you into an absolute asshole. People build legends around this guy's trash talk, his resilience, his toughness. All of those things were there. They were expressing themselves in a negative way before he embraced it. And now the Mamba mentality comes along and he embraces it. What I would say to sum this up on the Scottie Barnes part, truthfully, is that Scottie has the capacity for tremendous greatness. And I think everyone who's coached him can see it in practices. Away from the public light, he is a different person. He is a different person. He is a psycho competitor in practice. So it's frustrating, especially when you coach him or you train him, to see what this guy can do and then to see him go out on a main stage and play second fiddle, third fiddle to Fred and Pascal. It's very frustrating. It's infuriating to see him take 2 or 3 shots in a quarter. Here, he has a chance. He has an all-star teammate. He has a player that was deemed as a better prospect than him, and RJ Barrett. These are his teammates. Brandon Ingram and RJ Barrett are scorers. They are guys who everyone in the league, when they came into the draft, saw as franchise talents. Scottie is a guy that people did not see as a franchise talent, more like a franchise complementary piece. For him to come out in his last Twitch stream or 2 Twitch streams, I don't follow Scottie on Twitch. I don't really engage with Twitch, but shout outs to those of you who do. I think I'm just, yeah, like I sometimes, if I can catch it, I will, but very often I don't. So I don't know if this was his last Twitch stream or some Twitch streams ago where he said, I want it all. I'm going to be an all-star, MVP, blah, 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 defensive player of the year, DPOY, I want it all. I'm done, like we're chasing greatness. Like what do you say? Like we're chasing greatness. That, if expressed properly, will be a 25-point per game scorer. He's too physically dominant and he's very talented. He's a great passer. He can do it. The reason people have doubts about whether he will do it is because he now has teammates who have done it. RJ, Brandon Ingram. Once he sees himself as the leader of a team that includes multiple players, clear de facto last guy introduced, the leader of the team, and players who he has probably grown up thinking were better than him, and RJ, Brandon Ingram, players who are older than him, are now on his team. Now the true integration can become part of it. He just watched Cade, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, his peers that he beat out for Rookie of the Year, go to the playoffs and have some modicum of success. All failed, of course, but nevertheless, they were there and he was home. There is a brewing giant that needs to awaken. You know, Tony Robbins talks about the giant within, wake up the giant within. Movies have talked about it, books have talked about it, literature has talked about it, the Bible has talked about it. This is as old as time itself. Be who you are, be who you're born to be. It's dangerous, it's courageous, it's an act sometimes that is violent, but you must embrace it. And if you do not embrace it, you will be held back by it for the rest of your life. Do it for yourself. Let me know your results. Comment on this video, bookmark this video, come back to me in 3 months if you actually do the work and tell me what you learned about yourself that you didn't want to know. I'm telling you, there are things that are inside of you that are buried away from your mind. You fight them. You can choose to fight them or you can choose to embrace them. I hope you do the latter. I'll talk to y'all later. Bueno Kitty saying, King Kong ain't got shit on me. Kahan saying, your words are resonating hard as fuck right now, Rob. I think we need a Pensari Life channel. We might. Tony Corners said, oddly enough, I'm going through this process myself. This sounds interesting. Yeah, shout outs to everybody who became a YouTube member. We are getting closer and closer to our goal of 100 new members. So shout outs to everybody who became a VIP, chatter, or baller. All 3 levels count towards our ultimate goal of 100. And maybe this is me embracing my shadow. The idea of asking people for money to support me is so tough. Do you remember the first time someone started spamming super chats? Do you remember that episode? Yeah, you know, if you do remember it after, comment, give me a W. Do you remember the first episode where a string of super chats came in? Do you remember that? Do you remember how uncomfortable I became? I almost started to cry. I was so shocked that anybody in the world wanted to pay $20, $30 to support me. It was nuts to me. Again, as a child who often believed that he wasn't worth shit, it's taken a long time to become an adult who thinks he deserves better. I now demand better, actually. It's so amazing. Like, there are times where, and this is a major shift in my life, like I used to, it sucks to admit this, but it's true. I can't run away from it. When I was younger and I was interested in a girl and she showed up like 25 minutes late for a date, I was still there and I was just happy she showed up because my fear was, who am I for her to show up? She's so attractive. She's so great. She's so this. I had this very diminished version of myself but deep down inside of me, I knew I was good. I knew it. There were forces telling me I wasn't good enough, but there was a part of me inside that was just like, no, you're special. Like you really do have the capacity for something really amazing here. Like you're a smart guy. Like you do this, but I didn't say it. I didn't say it out loud. I was just happy she'd show up. And it was interesting. You know, a few years ago, it was like 6 years ago, I remember going to a date. This girl was damn attractive. She might have been one of the youngest dentists in Canada. I was really into her. Thought she was amazing. Thought she was the type of girl that you might be able to marry, you know? Like that type of girl, like really, you know, not a lot of red flags. I remember we set up a date for 6 o'clock in Yorkville. I was there at 6. I was maybe afraid that she would, you know, not show up because whatever, but I took the chance. I asked her out 6 o'clock, 6:02. She sends me a text message saying, sorry, I'm running 15 minutes late. There was a part of me that was like, I'm glad she's still coming. But that was the moment, one moment at least in my life that I can remember where I really stood up for myself. And I left. She was shocked, believe it or not, but I left. And I sent her a text saying, enjoy your coffee. I ordered coffee for her and I left. That's boss, bro. That's boss. We never talked again. She, I don't know. Don't know. I can barely even remember. I do remember her name, actually. I'm not going to say it out loud, but I do remember it. And it was in that moment that I really stood up for myself. I wish I had done it sooner. To be honest, I wish I had done it sooner. I wish I had done it when people, talked down to me when I was younger. And the truth is, I tried. I tried many times. When my aunt would try to talk down to me, or my mom would try to say, say something, diminishing to me, like you'll never be good enough to do this or whatever. I wish, in that moment that I confidently declared I will be. But that's what I said. Like the shadow is in you. It comes out in these spurts. And sometimes I would scream that I am great enough to do this, but it wasn't integrated. Once I integrated it, my life changed. I hope your life will change too. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Matt saying, take all the money, Rob. You deserve it. See, even that comment makes me so uncomfortable. There's more work to be done. The work is not done. Yeah. But, saying like, I want 100 members, believe me, 5 years ago, there's no way in hell I would ever do that. I couldn't do that. It's hard. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.